All right, let's get into it. There was some saucy quarterback news is the biggest story of the day. Nick Foles, Super Bowl 52 MVP, the man that beat Tom Brady and shootout Eagles, Patriots. Well, Brady's on a new team, and Nick Foles, for the third time in 3 years, is also on a new team. The Bears are acquiring Foles in a trade with the Jaguars, Mike Garafolo reported. Jacksonville will receive a fourth-round pick in exchange for Foles. One season in Jacksonville ruined by the collarbone injury in week one, a Jaguar organization that was burning alive, and then he comes back, doesn't play well, and then Gardner Minshew takes back over for the end of the season. So just a total loss. And for just one season, the Jaguars paid $30.5 million for Foles, who leaves behind almost $19 million in dead money on the cap after the trade. So Jacksonville is just in a world of hurt right now, and they just do not expect them to be a contender in the immediate future. But on the Bears side, and we'll start with you on this, Wes, Nick Foles comes to Chicago for one reason and one reason only, to be the guy that could push Mitch Trubisky, either push Trubisky to be a better or push him right out the door, the former first-round pick who's coming off a very disappointing season.
Yeah, you give a coaching staff like this where Matt Nagy, Bill Lazor, and John DeFilippo all worked with Foles in the past. You give them an excuse to find a guy that they know and they're familiar with. Most coaching staffs are going to do that. And then you throw in the coronavirus on top of it, where people don't know if you're going to have an off-season program. People don't know how much work you're going to be able to do before training camp. I think that ends up being a pretty big factor in a situation like this, where their familiarity with Nick Foles scored pretty high. And Bill Lazor also worked with Andy Dalton with the Bengals too. So maybe you figured they just liked Foles better than Dalton.
Well, Foles has a higher upside. It's been weird for me today to see all the flaming of the Bears for this move and all the jokes of just like, okay, well, now they have two terrible quarterbacks. That's really going to help. And maybe I overrated Nick Foles when Wes and I had him very high in our free agency, and I was, on our rankings, and I was leading that drive. But he's not a bum. I mean, these two guys are even. The next time Mitchell Trubisky has one of the best Super Bowl performances of all time, has an NFC Championship game where he puts up 40 points, has a full regular season where he has 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Nick Foles has done some things in the NFL, and to me, if it's actually a fair fight, there's no question to me Nick Foles has a higher ceiling and gives them a better chance to win, and maybe gives them a little bit of juice.
I'm with you on that. Like, I don't hate the signing at all. My one concern with Nick Foles is not when he's available. He is an immediate upgrade for me over Mitch Trubisky and deserves another shot to be a starter. But his availability is suspect. It's been that way for a long time. And but if the Bears were looking into Cam Newton, there were reports of that. But Cam Newton is getting totally banged by our society right now, where if you're someone that is open to moving from team A to team B, and you're essentially someone who's been a figure nestled away in rehab, you can't take the physical, you can't show the team where you're at physically, you can't even go have that conversation. So to Wes's point, these teams with embedded coaching staffs that have been there for a while, that find players that they know they can plug right in, that come with, especially at the quarterback position, with knowledge to teach other people and to be that presence. Of course, Nick Foles makes sense. I don't think you would ever have chosen to start over with a risky free agent trade candidate instead. So I killed the Bears over and over. At least they've recognized that they need to upgrade the position, and they've done something about it. So box checked. I hope that Foles can stay healthy.
And to be clear, Mark, you said that society has banged Cam Newton. I feel like, to be more clear, it's been this pox that has fallen upon society and changed society, the way we operate as human beings. It's the pandemic that's banged Cam Newton.
No, that's a good clarification. For me to blame society in an isolated fashion is not fair.
The Jaguars are still paying for their original Blake Bortles sin. They were so desperate last year to find somebody to replace Bortles that they overpay for Foles, and now, like you said, $19 million in dead money. because they kept the Foles charade going on for so long.
They have $33 million total in dead money this year. So that's like money they could be spending on making the team around Gardner Minshew better, including the defense. I mean, you're going to have to score a lot of points to keep that defense.
And that said, it's well known if you're a listener to this show that certain people on our show love Gardner Minshew and certain people don't, namely me. It's a good setup for him in the sense that I doubt where the Jaguars are. It feels like they are in more now of a rebuilding period. I would doubt that they would bring in a veteran, an Andy Dalton type guy, when they're so far away from contention at this stage. He might get in trouble because they're not going to have a great supporting cast around him necessarily. But I would also think that Minshew's going to get a real shot now to be their starter, at least entering the season, and see how it goes from there.
Well, I mean, this spoke louder than anything they could have done, which was to clear up this two-headed quarterback situation ASAP. But I don't like Minshew's chances to win games with the way this team is constructed. They're in cap hell. They are allowing every defensive player worth anything at all to escape and be traded or escape and leave the team. And unless you're an offense that's going to put up, this defense was terrible last year with half those guys on the roster. I don't know how he's going to survive or to add on to what he did last year. It feels like a regression season for the quarterback position.
And I'm forever grateful for what Nick Foles did to Ricky and Greg's Patriots a couple of years back. But I would have thought Cam Newton, to me, has more sex appeal as a guy to bring in. And he could be a guy that not only pushes Mitch Trubisky, but can kind of get his career back on track. And all of a sudden they have a standout quarterback out of nowhere. It might have been a good gamble for that organization, which kind of needs to hit on something big. But Foles is the safer choice at this stage, but not by that much. Like Mark said, this guy can't stay on the field himself.
But Cam Newton, and you're right, he is an attractive man.
Very hot.
This Bears spot being filled, and then
it's funny hearing a man talk about good looking. Funny.
Why? Why?
Remember?
It's 2020.
Remember his comment? It's funny to hear a woman talk about.
Nice throwback.
I like
if
that.
If he goes to New England, I'm going to be so mad.
Don't be mad. Yeah, this is where I was going with this, Erica. I don't know if he would go to New England, but the combination of this news today with Foles and then Ian Rappaport reporting very strongly that the Chargers, after losing out on Brady, are going forward with Tyrod Taylor and presumably a rookie. They have a top 6 pick, and they could maybe move up and get Tunga Vailoa, or they could take Justin Herbert, and that's kind of what I'm expecting the Chargers to do. It leaves the Patriots in a situation where if they want to go bargain bin hunting, they've got options. I mean, there's Jameis, there's Cam Newton, and there's Andy Dalton, and it feels like a very Bill Belichick move to see who sits out there the longest and is just the total cheapest that they think they could build an offense around. And to me, Cam Newton would be the guy that I think would get Josh McDaniels excited.
All right, let us now move on and talk about other news. You know, let's check in on the Jadeveon Clowney, because he is the highest remaining player on the top 101, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people surprised that he is not connected to a team, and you haven't heard a lot. Well, Mike Garafolo noted Wednesday that Clowney has not found the market he expected. The Seahawks offer that he has in hand could be the best that he'll get, Garafolo added. So the pass rusher, we've talked about this forever on this show, or at least it feels like forever, that his production has never matched his stats. I mean, his production has never been a guy that should be paid like a highest paid defender in the league. But then always the big D word gets thrown around, not the one you're thinking of, disruptive. He's very disruptive, and yet it seems like teams are from a guy that has injuries that hasn't always produced statistically.
It's all relative, though. I mean, Dante Fowler, for instance, you know, we'll talk about him, but he got $16 million a year. So I'm assuming Jadeveon Clowney is going to get significantly more than that. And maybe he was thinking, like I was thinking, that he might get an insane amount, and he's clearly not getting that offer, or else we would be hearing more. Seattle reportedly made a very aggressive offer, and that might end up being his best bet, is to just return to the Seahawks.
He won't be alone in Seattle if he does return. Bruce Irvin is back with the Seahawks, according to Rap Sheet. The 32-year-old defensive end has agreed to terms with the Seattle Seahawks, reuniting him with Pete Carroll. They took him 15th overall in 2012. If you remember back then, that was seen as a surprise. Irvin had dealt with some off-the-field issues, as I recall, but he's always been a very steady contributor. He had a nice season, but now he's back with Seattle. So if they County back, you got Irvin in the building, they could really maybe make some gains getting to the quarterback, which was a problem last year.
I like Seattle's ability. One thing about them, because when players leave a team, it's almost like you're never allowed to have that player come back into the fold. Like you would never bring some of these guys back. Seattle is this is like the 5th or 6th guy that after a stop somewhere else, they're like, this guy fits our system. He was in a system in Atlanta that's similar to ours, and we'll have him right back. No hard feelings. Like it kind of tells you that, unlike some of these teams we talk about, like the Texans and others, that they don't burn the bridge. They keep the relationship alive, and you might need a guy later, and Irvin is the perfect fit right now.
At this point, Irvin, it's fun to get him back together. He's with KJ Wright. It's like good memories. He's kind of a bit player, but their biggest move so far has been bringing Jarron Reed back, and that was late last night. That was to a 2-year, $23 million contract, which is pretty good money. He's been an up and down player. Seahawks fans were thinking they were going to go wild. I think they're a little disappointed that that's like the highlight of their first couple of days, but it's like, calm down. Well,
they've signed a couple of offensive linemen too, Brandon Shell and BJ Finney. And it looks like they expect both of them to start. Those aren't big names, and they were not on our top 100 list, but there they are starting for the Seahawks.
In other news, a trade. We love trades. The Denver Broncos are acquiring Titans defensive lineman Jurrell Casey in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Rap Sheet reports. 9 News Denver. Mike Lease had that first. Denver full on their defensive line with several guys hitting free agency. So they add a 5-time Pro Bowler. Wes, did this surprise you that Casey came free for a bottom-of-the-shelf draft pick?
It did surprise me, but those things always surprise me unless I read a Greg article saying this guy's making too much money and needs to be cut and found jobless. Those are usually how Greg's articles go when he does his cut guys.
Is this a shot, or what is this?
I cannot tell. That was either a really nice compliment or a withering put down.
Oh, I never really know when guys are going to lose their job until Greg covers it. And Jurrell Casey was not on my radar. I feel like Jonathan Simmons played so well last year that I guess they feel like he can slide into that role, and they can maybe get more pass rush and sacrifice a little run defense, and then use some of that money for guys like Derrick Henry.
I find it unjust that Jurrell Casey, who's been consistently awesome and consistently outside of PFF football heads and certain types, mostly ignored by the casual fan, and no one even knows who he is for the most part. The minute that the Titans get, kind of sexy and are going to have a bunch of primetime games, bang, he's sent off the team. It's God forbid Jurrell Casey ever get the attention he deserves for having been consistently awesome.
I was stunned by this trade. I guess he had a shoulder problem last year. He has been around a while, but he's been durable. He's been really productive. I know he's been one of your favorite players, Wes. It seems like a steal, and they're trying to cut some salary cap. Maybe it's a Derrick Henry move, but it was on the same day that they signed Vic Beasley to a $10 million contract. Vic Beasley, who going into this free agency period was like the guy I would have wanted my team to sign the least, because you just knew someone was going to pay Vic Beasley, hoping he could have the one good season that the Falcons basically were hoping they would get out of him, and they never did. And I know they play different positions, but I'm a little mystified. The Titans defense always seems like this formless. I know that they're a little more fun on offense, but the defense still has that old nickname that Tan used to give them.
So let's talk Broncos then. We haven't talked about their side of the trade. They had Jurrell Casey. They are picking up AJ Boye. They kept Justin Simmons. And they get Bradley Chubb back next year. This defense was playing really well at the end of last year. I like what the Broncos are doing on that side of the ball.
If I was Tony Reale, around the horn, I'd be giving you some points right now, Wes. I like that one. That's
That
what I
was good.
feel like. I feel like we're on around the horn with these.
It does have that vibe.
Sign thanking you for the points.
How many points do I have, Greg? I feel like you would be judging me negatively.
You've got a lot of points. If we had started the points before the show, when you were breaking out a conspiracy theory about an NFL Network mishap that I won't get into, that would have been negative points. But you're doing great once the show started.
Yeah, I saved the negative point conversations for off the air.
Smart.
And before we get overly excited about the Broncos West, Joe Flacco is about to be cut, or it has been done. They have Drew Lock and then 2 Jags, sub-Jags behind him. It feels like quite a gamble at the quarterback position right now.
I specifically mentioned the defensive side of the ball because although I like the Graham Glasgow signing,
Nice job by them.
The points you mentioned are legit. We don't know about their quarterback. They only really have one proven wide receiver. I don't know. They got a lot of question marks on that side of the ball.
Well, here's the thing. Cam and Jameis and Dalton have to go somewhere. Like, they're not going to not be in the NFL next year. And so, now that I've been I don't know, maybe Denver is a team where, even though they say they're in on Drew Lock, it's like at a certain point, if these 3 guys are making, $6-7 million, like a backups type money, it's like they'd be crazy not to try one of those guys.
Well,
I agree with you.
Elway already swung and missed at one washed up veteran in Joe Flacco. Maybe Cam is a guy that he would wait on and then bring in again. He seems like a guy that would take a big swing there. He is the guy that got Peyton Manning once upon a time when he had injury issues.
I mean, John Elway watched Cam Newton basically take the Super Bowl off. I don't know if that's the greatest selling point for a prospective employer, but
I mean, he took one play off. It just happened to be the one with the game in line.
I didn't see a whole lot happening outside of that one play, but I'll take your word for it.
Whew. I just gave Mark some points.
I did. It's so funny. I thought of that again today. And I know you Panthers fans, as at the end of the Cam Newton era, so many of you are still thinking about that play. Super Bowl 50, about 2 or 3 minutes to play, ball on the ground in a 1-score game, and Cam watched.
Is this you rubbing salt in the wound?
I'm just saying, I think about it sometimes. If I was a Panthers fan, I'd probably think about it all the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
In other news, speaking of the NFC South, the Falcons make an addition to their defense. Their pass rush gets a boost. Tom Pelissero and Rap Sheet report that they are expected to sign Dante Fowler to a 3-year deal. This guy is getting some frequent flyer miles in his career. The Falcons could not get to the quarterback last year, and Fowler's been a little up and down in his career, but he had a nice run with the Rams, and now Dan Quinn's defense is going to need him to be a consistent guy off the edge. Mark, do you think he could be that?
Well, I think, we hit on Vic Beasley, and at this point, you need an upgrade. And if he plays the way he did with the Rams, that is a distinctive upgrade. Dan Quinn coached him at Florida, so it's another one of these relationship scenarios. He's young. You're, in theory, getting him at a time where he could round into someone that does what he did last year, which was 11.5 sacks, which was a personal best for him year after year. I mean, the Falcons, to me, I need to see their defense before I trust it, because it just seems like it's not really clicked in a while at this point.
How is Dante Fowler only 25 years old? What is going on here?
I'm with you. He's one of these guys.
How am I almost 40? And this guy he was essentially 23 for 7 straight years.
Well, he was always distinctively younger than you, but fair enough.
Yeah, he entered the league young. He got this much money because the Rams reportedly really wanted to keep him, and they went pretty high to keep him. So that's a good sign that a team that had him for a year and a half wanted to pay him big money. And if I'm a Rams fan, and I'm looking at this defense, and you think of what they have lost so far. They've lost Michael Brockers. They've lost Dante Fowler. They've lost Corey Littleton. They got rid of Nicole Roby-Coleman, who was a pretty good player. And Eric Weddle retired. And Wade Phillips is gone. You have a first-time coordinator in Brandon Staley. That is a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, but you're leaving out one thing, Greg. Yeah. Leonard Floyd's in the building.
That's true.
He is being signed by the Rams. Pelissero and Garofalo reported. So they are essentially replacing Fowler with Floyd, who was released by the Bears on Tuesday, a former first-round pick. So they're hoping that he will somehow find the spark. So get excited, LA. Gerald McCoy, he is leaving that division and heading to Big D. The Cowboys, not the Big D you're thinking of. The Cowboys agreed to terms with McCoy on a 3-year deal. Rap Sheet reported, ESPN first had it. Garofalo says the deal has a base value of $18 million, could get to $20 million with some incentives hit. He's 32 years old, went to Carolina for 1 season, played 16 games. Wes, not the same guy that he was during his heyday in Tampa, but somebody that could still damage. But I would see this as a positive signing for a Cowboys defense that kind of needs some reinforcements.
Yeah, Greg talked about the Rams losing so many guys. The Cowboys have lost as many snaps as anybody, I think, in this free agency period with Robert Quinn, Byron Jones, Jeff Heath, take away Jason Witten and Randall Cobb. And then Malik Collins, who Gerald McCoy is going to replace. And I'd say McCoy, even at age 32 or whatever he is now, is a better pass rushing presence. So he's a more disruptive guy on passing downs, and it's now a passing league. That was probably a Cowboys priority.
If I was a Cowboys fan, I would have been pretty worried going into free agency. But I think the first few days have gone about as good as you could have hoped, considering how much you had to pay Dak, that you got Amari Cooper back. They re-signed Anthony Brown. Blake Jarwin's back in the building. That's not a big deal. Sean Lee, whatever. But
the way you said it sounds like a pretty big deal.
The important thing here is Kai's Kai. Kai was re-signed as like a day one free agent.
Oh, yeah.
Greg, can I just, with all due respect, that was not your news to break. I mean,
yeah, I'm setting it up for you.
Because you know the one place that does not close during the coronavirus pandemic is the Kicker Club.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Dallas Cowboys have signed Kai Forbath. He stays in the building after being just an absolute standout down the stretch for the Cowboys. Nearly kicked them in the playoffs, let's face it. He went a perfect 10 for 10 on field goals down the stretch. So Kai, who absolutely was nearly drummed out of the league just because of some bad word of mouth, is how I see it looking back on it.
Spreading it.
Didn't that word of mouth start with you?
It didn't start with me, but I was told some negative things, famously at a area hospital here in Los Angeles before the birth of my first son, that, Kai's Kai. Kai's going to do what Kai's going to do, which is the universal indicator for, maybe not the best dude. And now Kai is back on his feet, and he never deserved to be off his feet because the boy can kick. In other news, the Chargers are expected to land a premium name on the secondary market. Cornerback Chris Harris is signing in LA. Rap Sheet reported the deal is worth 2 years and $20 million. Harris then confirmed to ESPN that he's going to the Chargers. A nice pickup, 9 years in the league. This will be his 10th season. We talked about it a little bit when we learned that he wouldn't be going back to Denver. Greg, that Harris maybe not the same player he used to be, but maybe stick him in the slot and he could do some good work for the Chargers.
He looked awesome last year, and the combination of him, Casey Hayward, and Desmond King is about as good as it gets at cornerback. I'm going to fall into the same trap. I kind of like the signings they've had. Bulaga at right tackle. They bring in Linval Joseph. Not so sure about that. But either way, it's like the Chargers roster outside of quarterback, which seems like a significant position, looks pretty good again. Let's get back on the Chargers bandwagon.
What a team they're building in every room except the quarterback room.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Can we send Andy Dalton there for a 4th round pick and be done with it? How about that?
I mean, they are going to draft someone. I don't know if they just love Justin Herbert, and so they feel fine that they're if he's there at 6, or if they are gonna try to trade up. Maybe they'll be the team that takes Tua. Who knows?
It's funny because in Jeremiah's pre-free agency mock draft, he had 2 teams, the Colts and Bucks, back to back, taking Love and Herbert. And I just think the Chargers are, when you're looking at potential free agents and you're making it clear that you're not chasing after a veteran, they are locked and loaded to go get a rookie and restart that position from scratch. And if they get the right one, to Greg's point, the team around him because the offensive line has been improved, at least on paper right now too, this is a great situation for a rookie compared to some teams you could land with.
The more I think about it, they really should be a team that should be thinking, and maybe they are, to give it all up to get Tua. You know, like that's a guy you can open your stadium with, and they have such a good rest of the team. They've been so patient. They've drafted pretty well. Like I could see them giving up a huge raft of draft picks to go get Tua, open the stadium with him. That'd be fun.
Do it. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a
Greg.
lot of sense. If everybody was like, Tom Brady, he opened the stadium with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to be 43 in week 1, if there's a week 1. You go get a young quarterback, then can put some meat in the seats, and then he's a guy that could be there for 15 years. Let's fly.
That is a gross term.
He might be 44 in week 1.
Oh, my God. He could be 49. All right, let's hit a little 8 o'clock delight, Ricky. Malcolm Jenkins heading back to the Bayou. 4-year, $32 million deal with 16.25 guaranteed to go back to the Saints, leaving the Eagles. Has he got anything left, Greg?
Yeah, he was playing well last year. Replaces Von Bell. Saints fans love him. Sean Payton loves him. Saints. Yes.
Andrew Whitworth is not going anywhere. The Rams are in a time of transition, but they decide that they want to keep Jared Goff's blindside protector. 3-year deal for Whitworth. If he plays out the contract west, he's going to be in his 40s, like you.
Yeah, that means he should probably wake up with a different body part hurting every day and may only last about 4 games into the season. Don't get too close to 40. Just don't do it.
Thomas Davis is reuniting with Ron Rivera on the Redskins. Can't kill Thomas Davis, Mark Sessler.
I also wonder if the Redskins might look at Eric Reed, who the Panthers just released as well, because Rivera feels like the kind of coach that, despite selling you fresh ideas, is going to bring in every aging player he can simply because he has them in his cell phone. And I like Rivera. He's fine, but it just seems like you're going to get a lot of ex-Panther type people on this roster.
Hey, 2 points for you, buddy. And also maybe Cam Newton goes to Washington. Stranger things have happened. Patriots Darman heading to Detroit. So, Greg, the Patriots exodus continues.
Yeah, congratulations to the Lions for taking all of the players the Patriots didn't want. Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton, Duron Harmon. This is the way you build a championship.
Is there anybody left on the Patriots roster besides Ryan Izzo?
It's all Stidham, baby. It's just Stidham Court.
Greg, remember when your biggest concern about the Patriots was why there weren't more coaches on their staff? Now you have real concerns.
Oh, yeah.
Now you do.
It's a huge concern that the Lions are overpaying like role players from the Patriots. Give me a break.
I mean, one thing I know is that when Jamie Collins leaves New England and goes to a different team, you're going to get the best version of Jamie Collins, hands down.
The Raiders and veteran cornerback Eli Apple agree to a deal. A former 10th overall pick. He's bounced around a little bit, most recently with the Saints. Now he's in Vegas.
He's one of those guys you want as your third corner, because if he's your second corner, they're picking on him all the time. And with the Raiders, at this point, he might be their first corner because they tried for Chris Harris and offered 3 years, and Harris decided to go 2 years to the Chargers.
And